This is adorable. This is also adorable. Adorable. That fell out of the ugly tree and hit every branch on the way down, but I'm sure someone finds it adorable. That's a Sphinx cat. They're adorable as well. My fiance doesn't believe so, and she's wrong. They are amazing and adorable, and I want one. This is stuffed. It is teeth-hurtingly, mouth-puckeringly lovable. Even when images appear a little disturbing, and there are a few of those, it's still adorable. I said stuffed, not stuffed fables. I'm sure some of you were getting your hopes up. Nope, just stuffed, though the two games do share an aesthetic similarity. Both feature stuffed animals, but where Stuffed Fables has a connecting theme, that of stuffed animals protecting a sleeping child from nightmares, Stuffed is... I honestly don't know what Stuffed is about. The first page of the manual claims to have a story, but it's the type of opening exposition like what a producer would insert in a movie in order to justify later unnecessary exposition. It doesn't reveal anything about what is happening and why. It's just animated stuffed animals, and I think there's fantasy involved. Something about a quest.
And, snakes?
There are missions, but there's no narrative cohesion to be found. I shouldn't be looking for any. The game is almost too simple to justify one, but each player assumes the role of a character recruiting friends and to aid in an ultimate mission. This implies a theme. As we'll see later, the game shares a few similar threads with two other die-rolling games, Roll For It and Elder Sign, and stuff slots somewhere in between the two in regards to theme. Roll For It lacks a theme altogether, and no one seems to care. If it attempted one, I'd be questioning its purpose. You'd assume a game with stuffed animals in a nameless fantasy setting would involve a theme, but outside of cloying imagery, there's nothing under the veneer. It's laminate over wood pulp. Don't get me wrong, I love the art design, but I was hoping there would be something tied to it other than a very simple set of rules. The box, designed to resemble a storybook, they get a point for that, encloses some plastic coins, a handful of cool custom dice, and 2 stacks of cards. And let's just take a moment to admire the art design. Does that aesthetic look familiar? It should. Certifiable Studios also designed the colossal yet disappointing Who Goes There, and where the aesthetic felt a little out of place in that game, here it fits right in. Setting up is easy. Shuffle the advantage deck, shuffle the mission deck, flip the top one over to reveal the mission. Simply put, the first person to claim this card wins. That's it. There are conditions, so it won't be super easy, but with only 2 players, this is a fast game. Shuffle the Loyals, Mercenaries, and Specialists. Reveal 2 of each. Place a Specialist die on its straw deck. Lay out the coins and dice. On a player turn, you roll all 8 basic dice. There are names for these symbols: Charisma, Intelligence, Essence, Resource, and Burden. Yes, Burden. But there is no justification for those names, so we'll just move on. Also, the coins have 2 sides. Don't ask me what the other side means. I imagine these tokens were taken from another game, or there was another mechanic the game was expected to have that was removed. Even though some cards showed the opposite side, there is no reason for it to be found anywhere. After rolling, you compare the rolls with those visible across the player area. If anything matches, you can claim that character. Mercenaries and Specialists often require advantage cards or coins, so likely you'll be recruiting from the Loyals first. You can imagine this can result in a lot of wasted turns, but as it turns out, there are ways to mitigate the randomness. Place a Charisma result on your character, removing it from the available dice, and reroll any others. Additionally, if you set aside 3 of a kind of any dice, save the burden, you can gain 1 coin. If you set aside 4 of a kind of any result, save the burden, you can gain 1 advantage card. The dice are clever, and there is only 1 facing of each result, except for Charisma, which has 2. As a result, you will often always have 1 of those available for rerolling. Coins can be used to draft teammates. Alternately, 2 coins can be used to purchase an advantage card. Advantage cards can have teammates, aggressive red cards, which are played outside your turn, or white passive cards, which can be played on your turn. Teammates also have rules regarding the using of dice to complete an action. Most are rerolls, but others change die facings. When a player first acquires a Specialist, the Specialist die is added to the base 8, which are rolled on each turn by every player. The resulting red die can activate abilities on each turn, not just the turn of the player rolling that owns the card. This can include stealing coins, removing dice, gaining coins, and so on. The point is to meet the requirements of the mission card. If you want a more extended game, you can go best out of 3 or 4, clearing out the acquired teammates and coins after a mission is claimed, effectively resetting the entire game. Finally, there are burdens, an optional rule. Each player gains 2 and must meet the requirements on these cards before they can claim a mission. I'd recommend using them as the base game is very simplistic. There are also variants that are always welcome, with the notable lacking option being a solo or cooperative mode. Honestly though, that would be difficult given how little of the game is included. There are 40 cards in the Advantage deck, which is more than enough, but only 8 each of the Loyal and Mercenary decks and only 5 in the Specialist deck. That's it, which means that even in a 2-player game, you're likely to see all the Specialists. In a 4-player game, you'll certainly burn through the recruitment decks. There is not much variety in this game. The box could easily hold more cards. I hope Certifiable didn't pull stock from the set just to sell them as physical DLC later. And the game obviously suffers from the random victor dilemma. Lucky rolls can happen. My first game with my fiancée, she won not using any advantage cards, but by merely gaining all the mission parameters in a single roll. One roll. The game was over. As a result, Stuff fits into the role of an intermediate game played between other, better, longer games. It scratches the same itch as other games like Roll For It, Star Trek 5-Year Mission, or Elder Sign. Stuff looks better than all of those, but the other games are all better designed. That being said, this game does scratch a similar itch as Roll For It, so such a pivotal gateway game might have finally found a replacement. In many ways, Stuff resembles Roll For It, just with Go Faster red stripes. With so little of the game here, there isn't much left over for replay value. I'd even tolerate repeated artwork if it resulted in more cards. But with that being said, Stuff could easily slot in as a pretty replacement for a game like Roll For It. And if approaching Stuff with that view, you won't be disappointed. Unlike Who Goes There, the designers for Stuff welcomed variations. I applaud Certifiable's openness in embracing alternatives. As it stands, I love complex games, so I would probably play Stuff with, well, all of them, and maybe a few more. Draw the top mission. Once a player gains the first teammate, at the end of that turn, advance the current mission to the right. Draw the next one face up. Continue until 3 missions are available. Then the first card is discarded face down, and this continues until the draw deck is empty. Then shuffle the draw deck and continue. Work this in with the campaign mode, best out of 3, my guess. But each time someone claims a card, they must discard one teammate, not their entire flop. The mission card takes the place of that teammate. Players do not reset their entire hand. This was a tricky one. It should be natural given the theme that the game would support some form of cooperation. Near the back of the book lists several backers' written plots that all imply cooperation. Obviously this has to involve completing not one but several missions. The aggressive advantage cards should be removed. Incorporate all of the game's variant rules. Burdens go into and clog a player's hand. Each player starts with 1. Not only that, but anytime a player rolls 3 burdens on attribute dice, they gain another burden. With those out of the way, set aside the number of burden cards based on difficulty. I would say 6, not including the burden each character starts with. If forced to claim a burden and none are available, the game is lost. Victory only comes when 3 mission cards are claimed. You can add this in with the rotating mission flop rule mentioned earlier for an even more complicated setup. In conjunction with the co-op just mentioned, try running with a variant where all the players run with the same teammates. I didn't mention earlier that each player can only possess 2 of each type of teammate. Let's set that to 3, and now all players share the same teammates. Players do not share advantage cards, coins, or burdens. Unless you play with this rule. Combine this with the single hand and co-op modes. When receiving a coin, decide which side you wish it to be, heart or sword. This is necessary given the requirements on some cards, but further they can be spent in different ways. 2 hearts can be spent to prevent gaining a burden card. In the co-op mode, it goes back to the bottom of the draw pile. A sword can be used to reroll 2 dice and 2 dice only. If you can combine this with the single hand and co-op, then all players could also share a single coin pool. Clearly there is a lot that can be done with Stuffs, so much so that I wish that they included more of it. Simply put, I wish there was more game. More rules, more options, more cards, and for a game about stuffed animals, it's bizarre that so many cards are shockingly violent. After the disappointment that was Who Goes There, Stuffed had a lot of pressure despite how much smaller it is. I mean, it costs like 4 to 5 times less for one thing. And honestly, it shows that despite Certifiable once again proving their production is without reproach, it also shows that those responsible for gameplay design are several steps behind. To put it bluntly, they're They are not doing the art design justice. Stuff makes far fewer mistakes than Who Goes There, and it's not outright broken. I just wish there was more game here, something to honor the fantastic art design. But maybe I'm asking more than what it wants to be. I mean, we don't want our stuffed animals to talk back. Despite what you may think, Ted would be a nightmare. So if wanting something simple, quick, and beautiful, Stuffed is probably right up your alley. This is Chris from Deus Ex Machina. By the way, not leaving any stone unturned, and as an addendum, one thing you may notice if you pull out the insert is a very cute and once again adorable dice tray with some cool artwork inside. It's a nice little touch once again. It's really appreciative. I love the production design. But yeah, just figured I'd mention that.